You know, this group, I tell you, every month.
Shelley,
Yes,
what's that
ma'am.
blue thing and you are hanging above your head? What is that? No, right in the screen. There's something right there.
There's a flower.
Oh, it's a flower? Oh, okay.
Yes, a flower.
what?
But what a way to welcome our guests, you all. We're live.
What is that? Oh, I see it.
It's an apparition.
It's on the kitchen table.
Oh my Lord.
We're live.
We are live, you all.
We are live.
Oh my gosh. Welcome to BlackProGen Live. Today is November 1st, 2016. We are a week out from the election, and if you can tell, we are all just giddy with excitement about the election and our Upon Us show for tonight. I'm Nika Smith, welcoming you here. We've got a full house tonight, as in not with the twins and Joey and all those other people, but with a lot of colorful faces here. Before we get started, we're going to go ahead and do some introductions. Actually, you know what? Let me get the business out of the way first, and then we'll do our introductions with this crazy group. This is going to be a tee-hee-hee night tonight. I can already tell folks going to be just giggling. Just because we can just giggle, right? So let's go ahead and get started. Let me share my screen. All right, I have 50 windows open. This is what happens when you have 50 windows open, but nonetheless, here we are. Tonight's topic is DC, Maryland, and Virginia genealogy research for people of color. If you are watching us live, feel free to tweet us at BlackProGen. If you have comments or whatever, of course, you can tweet us at BlackProGen or hashtag your comments, questions, concerns, whatever, with BlackProGen Live. And before we go into the best part of the entire show, let's get some introductions for everybody. I'll start with who is number one on my screen. That would be the incomparable woman with red glasses and headband with grandma to left of self.
Hello, everyone from Maryland. My name is Angela Walton Raji.
All right, that would be woman with grandma to left of self with red glasses. Next, we will go with our Motown-esque Bob with glasses, AKA Bernice Alexander Bennett.
Hello, everybody. Bernice Bennett from Maryland.
All right, we got some people from Maryland in the house here. Next person is the amazing, the bright, the scholarly, the let me break down genealogy to eugenics and the connection, and then make you think about it twice and just on you at the very end, Ellen Fernandez-Sacco.
Hey, everybody, it's Ellen, and I'm here calling from Florida.
All right. Next up is one of our two Y chromosomes that are here for the evening. The first being the man who ran home from a political event just to be here with us.
Oh, man.
Mr. James Morgan,
The third.
That's me. Good evening, everybody. James Morgan, reporting to you live from Prince George's County, Maryland. But I originally hail from the Garden State, the great state of New Jersey. And, I'm just very thrilled to be here.
All right, that's three people from Maryland tonight. All right, Maryland is representing.
I just want everybody to know that I'm done voting for Shelley Murphy for president next week.
Yeah, I did a fill-in for her for my congressional seat. I put Dr. Shelley Murphy.
There you go.
Yeah, I just want to make sure everybody knew that.
That's the change you can believe in that will make America great again. Shelley
Exactly,
Murphy.
Shelley Murphy. All right,
I stand with Standing Rock right now.
All right.
And that's why you should vote for her.
Let's hear
Right
for
there.
That's why you should vote for Shelley.
My people
right.
out there, they need help.
Okay, everybody's people are out there, honestly. Let's see. Next up, we've got the another woman in red who has a bob, who is in the great state of Missouri. That would be Linda Bug Sims.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Linda Bug Sims, and I'm from St. Louis, Missouri.
All right. Next up is the only person that has a Y in one of their surnames as a part of our group. She is tying the group together with a lovely ensemble of blue and somewhat red. From what I can tell.
She had to look down.
I guess it is me. Okay. Is that me?
Yes, you. You're the
Oh,
only one.
okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Renata Yarborough Sanders, calling in from Newport News, Virginia.
All
Good
right,
to
we
see
got
everybody.
our first VA in the house. All right. After that is the wonderful, the incomparable Dr. Shelley Murphy.
What? You forgot my cousin there.
Wait, no, I'm not done yet. I still got some more people to go. but
Hello,
you're just-
Shelley from Central Virginia.
All right, so 2 Virginia, 3 Maryland here. Next up is from the lovely state of Kentucky. We got
Thank you.
we got True. Her real name is True Lewis.
Hello, everybody from the Commonwealth of Kentucky. It's me, True.
Protect all that gold in Fort Knox.
Okay.
I think that's been going since the Bush era.
Not Reagan.
I think Bush took it all out.
I heard they stored it in that dresser right behind you. That's what I heard, though.
Okay, I hear. Yeah, that's how she bought the little Princess Tiana thing for the bed,
Yeah,
is with the
I got
gold
a couple
from
of bars.
Yeah, that's what they said on my Twitter feed yesterday. That's what they were talking about.
And last but not least, the youngest of the bunch, who we all refer to is Lil Willie Russell, the fourth.
We got a millennial in here.
We sure do. Say hey, Willie.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Willie Russell, and I'm from Oakland, California.
Yes. Okay.
Wait, what is this? Y'all trying to replace me? Like you go from James Morgan the third. 2 weeks ago, I was the only white person. Now you got Willie Russell the fourth. What is this? Am I getting phased out?
Hold on, Willie has been with us for a while. Willie is a Maggie alumni. He's a Maggie alumni, and we love Lil Willie. We love us some Lil Willie, and he's the town. He's representing the town.
I respect the brother. I'm just saying he got the glasses and everything. I'm just making sure y'all remember me. That's all I'm saying. I respect you. You know what I'm saying? I just want to make sure we're clear here. Because it's kind of like when they switched Aunt Viv in Fresh Prince. You know what I'm saying? I just want to make sure that doesn't happen.
Okay, the YCs are in the house. Moving along.
They are. So our chat room is cracking off. Just want to show out some love for the folks that are there. Teresa Vega is there tonight. We've got Professor Drew. Erlen Sterling, love him to death. He's awesome. Genealogy Jen is here. Trying to think of what else. Gosh, there's just a million people here, but our chat room is jumping. Feel free to comment in there. We're in there as well. I'm looking at all your comments and stuff like that. So, of course, before we can really get started with the topic at hand, we've got to have the best part of the show. Does anybody know what that is?
The news.
Nope. 10
Or
reasons why you are here tonight.
top 10.
Exactly, the top 10. Tonight's top 10 is the top 10 reasons why genealogy is better than the election. So let's proceed with our top 10. Number 10, the search form doesn't give results for options you didn't select. You're like, what do you mean? There have been stories of people selecting one person for president and then their vote gets counted for the other person. This is why we should stick with paper ballots. Number 9, we love the candidates' companies equally. Hold on, let me go ahead and present to everyone. All right, there we go. Okay, number 8, you can make conclusions and retractions without media coverage. When it comes to your genealogy, you don't have to issue a statement.
We should revisit that one.
Depends on the topic, right? Okay, let me present to everyone.
No shoehorn genealogy here.
No, yeah, shoehorns, yeah. Not about shoehorns. Number 7, no one comments with hashtag I'm with enumerators or hashtag divorce that 16. Number 6, if you've commented on any political posts, it's always right. I'm with her or Trump that 16.
Trump that 16.
Yes, that's what it's commenting on.
Bring the baby boomers along.
Sorry. Number 6, there are more than 22 million messages from RootsWeb listservs that won't ever get deleted.
That's good.
All right. Number 5, genealogy taught you that redlining, forced removal, and treaties are what led to no DAPL.
And DAPL meaning?
Meaning the Dakota Access Pipeline.
There we go. Gotta spell it out.
Gotta spell it out. Gotta learn your hashtags. Number 4, you saw Sarah Palin in your We're Related app results.
No.
That's me. Yes, that's me.
That hits close to home for so many people this month.
It is, yeah. Unfortunately, it is. Number 3, you have 5011 nasty women in your lineage.
Nasty women unite. We rule the world.
Number 2, you don't need approved ID to be interested in genealogy. And number 1, no one cares about who you sent the email to.
Amen.
Very good.
All right, those were my top 10. Granted, they weren't as funny as Shelley's, but I was trying to break the ice when it came to the election.
In 2017, we need to get a band for BlackProGen. We need to get like a.
You mean like the root?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you know what? Hey, look, Questlove he'll tweet you back. Don't look. If we can get a freestyle from Black Thought, I would love that.
There we go.
We actually have a theme song. It's called "Digging the Roots," but that's a different
would
story.
y'all like to hear "Digging the Roots"? I'll send it to Nika.
Yeah, well, we'll see. It looks like we're asking for a theme song. All right, people. Who is out there? Yeah, I was going to say. Go ahead.
Do we want to share our Digging the Roots? My son actually wrote this and put the music.
Run out of time, and we can send it to me, and then what we can do is decide. We'll actually, let's throw it out. That'll be one of our choices. We'll see if we can have, if any of our viewers, if you compose music, consider creating a theme song for us, because we don't have a theme song.
This one might be.
I think this one will work.
Really?
Seriously.
Okay. Well, you know what?
Then you have to I'll send it to you, Miss Nika. But anyway, moving along.
Moving along, it's time for us to get into our subject matter here, which is DC, Maryland, and Virginia genealogy research for people of color. So outside of the, usual stuff, right? When you're dealing with genealogy in any region, you need to learn geography first. You can't just decide you're just going to jump in and be like, okay, I don't know where anything takes place. I don't know the counties. I don't know the region. I don't know anything. So outside of that, which of course we're just going to assume that anyone watching has already done that pre-work. We would hope they have done that pre-work. If you haven't, that's your cue to do that pre-work on that particular region. What are some of the things that you feel may be roadblocks for folks that begin to research in the DMV area?
So roadblocks?
Roadblocks. Like, what are some of the things that may deter someone from researching? There was someone before we went live that said that they just completely stay away from this region.
I think for many, it's just not knowing what's there. We often hear from people who say all roads lead to Virginia, but even though they may lead to Virginia and you may be from a state that is inland or landlocked, like my Arkansas or Tennessee ancestors, but many of them do have roots in Virginia. And the question is, okay, I'm at this point, I see somebody's from Virginia. Now what? Where do I find them? I don't see it in a quick census check or even a more detailed census check. So now what options are there for me? And not really knowing Virginia, unless you are of Virginia, it is kind of a block. It's kind of scary.
And like most states, they might have broken off from another state.
Right.
So if you are researching Virginia and you cross June 20th, 1863, you might want to also check in West Virginia, because that's when they broke off and became a state. And also consider Kentucky and Tennessee once you get prior to that 1863 or so, because there could be some old Virginia records that are now in those states when it was totally the Old Dominion.
I would also like to add to, for myself, getting back to the DC, Maryland, Virginia area is going back beyond 4 generations on your pedigree. That can also be a roadblock. I know I have roots back there, know one of the ancestors, but when I get back to those records, not quite sure.
So it's important that you're thinking, what you're saying as far as roadblocks, excuse me, Nika, is checking, did it break off from another state, the time frame, Angela's point, you know, a lot of your ancestors that you might be in, and Linda's too, researching in another state might have hailed back at some time from Virginia. So again, what actually is blocking you from checking Virginia out? Because the laws changing every minute, every day during certain times, or what?
I would say that I think that one of the biggest roadblocks for folks is because the records are so much older than they are in other parts of the country. For some folks that can be very intimidating because you're looking at things early 1800s, late 1700s, and it can even go, you know, further beyond that when you're thinking about states like Louisiana, Mississippi. You're looking primarily 1810s, you know, present. And so I think that can be a bit of a challenge or a sort of a roadblock, like, gosh, these are really old records. And then, you know, you're not getting anything typed at that point, especially if you're a researcher who's been relying on typed records or easily readable handwriting. And then the term usage, you know, you've got a issue as well with the terms that are used in the DMV area versus other parts, you know, so they may not refer to land descriptions in the same way or whatever, you know, because you're dealing with old stuff, selling things for shillings and, you know, things like that. Once you get past a certain date, I think would probably be some roadblocks.
If I can jump in, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, one thing I would say, living in this area and not really being from here, so I kind of have like a weird relationship with the DMV history, is actually politics and the government. That may be a little bit intimidating as well because there is a wealth of documentation, and I'm sure we'll get into this in a little bit, but the Washington, D.C. specifically in the outlying area has had a really, really wonderful history of the free Black community. So a lot of times people will assume, you know, slavery, what have you, but DC, there's so much documentation here, and the federal government really is like, you know, the lifeline for industry and whatnot in this area. So that may be something that I think may be scary for some folks because you might have an ancestor here who might have been a butler at the White House or at the Senate or whatever the case may be. And to actually reach out to some of those big institutions like the Smithsonian or what have you, where they do have, I mean, literally I was researching somebody about a year or two ago, and this guy was a barber. He ran the Congressional Barbershop during the Reconstruction era. And all of his pay stubs and things of that nature were all housed up on Capitol Hill. But you gotta, you know, and it can be very intimidating, especially for somebody newer. But the records are there. You know, if you look for them, the records are there a lot of times.
Something else I'll add to, in addition to learning geography, which is like just the basic ground level for research in any state or location, you also have to consider how the state is organized in terms of how records are kept at the county level, right? Louisiana, we have it fairly easy when it comes to going to the county courthouse. We don't have to go to two different clerks. The clerk is there, marriages, you know, divorces, depending on which municipality or which area has the court records for that particular region. Sometimes it's the same exact courthouse that it, you know, would be for where you were going for parish stuff. But then in Mississippi, it's two different clerks for two different reasons. So one of the people in the public chat brought up that, you know, records are kept in a lot of different places in Virginia. Another that was Genealogy. Someone else mentioned, Brianna Williams said VA has the complexity and legalities and the historical perspective. I think the other challenge too, when it comes to researching, in particular, people who were former slaves, especially those that have a birth state of the DMV area, you know that they were sold down south because your ancestors ended up in Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, and you're like, but where? So it's almost like they were a slave, Okay, I know that, but where? Right? So sometimes that is a little bit of a complication. So moving forward, what do you think are some benefits of having ancestry or researching ancestors in the DMV area?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah, it is. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I might want to go back to what you said about the old records. You know, that might be the first thing that comes to mind. But then again, I can think of other states outside of those that I might go back a little further, maybe, but it might be depending because either I'm looking for people of color or I'm looking for white, you know, and it might depend on where the records might be also, or where I have to dig for them, or, you know, try to produce evidence.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, one thing I think that should be remembered is that just like anywhere else, you have to understand the regional locality and the geography. Because when you say a lot of people, when you say DMV, people are thinking Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia, because that's what it stands for. But for people who live in the proximity of Washington, D.C., that really only means anything that's really metro accessible, meaning the public transportation system. Going down to Alexandria, Virginia, which is Northern Virginia, you know, where Dr. Shelley Murphy is, you know, further south. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of things like that people should keep in mind. The one thing that I would say is a benefit, as I said, I mean, you have people, and this is the only place that I've ever been. Well, let me not say it like that. This is the only place I've ever lived where you have people here who will tell you, yeah, I'm 7 generations in this one city. And you know, being from the north, from New Jersey, that means something to me as a genealogist, because it tells me, okay, there's a paper trail. People who go back, even if their families were enslaved, if they were in Washington, D.C., you can tell pretty much what day that family received their emancipation, because Washington, D.C. had their own Emancipation Act. And people who were emancipated in that way were cataloged. So you can go back and look and find what family they were in. Heck, you might be able to go visit the house if it's still there, you know. So that's something right there that I think is very important. This is probably one of the most documented places in the Western Hemisphere, I would imagine. So yeah.
I agree with that. I would want to add that because I have a lot of friends who are Maryland researchers, and they actually can take their research predating the American Revolution. Their research goes back almost 100 years earlier. For example, we're hearing a lot today about the Georgetown Project with the 272 people who were sold south in 1832. But if one can actually, or if one already knows that they have Maryland ancestry, and if they're from Southern Maryland, there are records that predate the Revolution, that predate the 1700s into the late 1600s, especially if they were in Southern Maryland. Slaveholder records go back that far. The founder of our local genealogical society in Baltimore, her research took her back to the 1680s. And again, and she has always lived in Maryland, died in Maryland just a year ago, and her family is still in Maryland, and she's like, what, 8th or 9th generation living in the state that predates the existence of the country as the country. In other words, the colonial era. And wow. And what does that do for me if I find an ancestor living in Arkansas who may have been born in Maryland or Virginia, but again, they were sold south and sold south early. So there are no registers that one might find in the DMV, and we certainly don't see that. So-and-so was born in Maryland, but where in Maryland? My third great grandmother, Amanda's mother, Martha, was born in Virginia, but I only know that from a death record confirming that. Nothing else pointing specifically to a place. It's a challenge, but those who are here in this area are so fortunate because there are so many records that go back farther than those of us who are landlocked can go. So certainly there's a tremendous benefit.
Could that also be any coastal states?
Probably so.
You know what I mean? Because
Yes.
of, okay. Yeah, I think it's a good point. Yeah, the coastal records and ships, the ports.
The colonies.
Yeah, the colonies, yes, definitely.
So I think for a lot of our viewers who have ancestry that takes place or that they trace to some of these what are, we're calling landlocked states, and they know that they have ancestors who were born in Virginia, Maryland, DC. How, their question right now is, how do I move from the deep South to up north? Mm-hmm. How do I make that transition from researching deep South records to get my ancestry back to DC, Maryland, and Virginia? Of course, the tactic that we're thinking is tracing the slaveholders, following, slaveholders who you've successfully identified in your as owning your family members, and tracing them in terms of when they left those areas and then proceeded to move down south, which of course they would have brought their slaves with them, that sort of thing. What other tactics do you think people can use to determine a particular, where in a particular region, in this particular region, their ancestors were sold down south, from?
I think this is where local history is so critical, because I would say anything that reflects transportation / migration / movement, all of those time periods need to be studied. The reason why I say that, movement in particular, after the Civil War, and many of us may say, oh, gee, I'm at the point of trying to identify my ancestors from Virginia, and the last name is McDonald, but I don't see any white people living close by called McDonald. What does that mean? Well, one of the things I think it's important to understand, are there any records reflecting migration or movement right after the Civil War? Case in point, a close friend of many of us, Selma Stewart in Newport News, Virginia, contacted me one day, very excited, because she, having studied post-Civil War records, Freedmen's Bureau records, and saw a list of 400 is a significant number, 400 people from Virginia being sent to Arkansas to work for 2 years. Now, and these were transportation records. These individuals went to work in Arkansas. I did check 1870. Many returned, but guess what? Many did not. Maybe they liked the climate. Maybe it was warmer than perhaps a winter in Virginia. Many stayed. And let's assume perhaps you're a descendant now of that family that remained. And you're going to say, wow, I can't find my McDonald's. I don't see any slaveholder by that name. Maybe they came immediately after the war. Yeah. So any records that reflect movement, migration before, was there an import? This is where your local history is important. Was there suddenly an influx of people, as there were many migration movements, for example, South Carolina to Arkansas, Virginia to Arkansas, like Selma had found. And of course, we know, of course, the issues with exodusters and people who moved farther west. But I'm sure those of you who study Michigan, I know, Shelley, you have Michigan. A lot of people poured into Michigan. Some were free people and ended up there.
Stopped in Ohio, then made it to Michigan. And that's another link, Virginia to Ohio. Yes. Huge link. And not just Virginia, it's other states as well. But there was a stopover in Ohio. And again, I think you're right on point talking about the migrations. And I did my Davis Marsh free coloreds migrating, one just before the Civil War, one right after the Civil War. Both of these families, one out of Pennsylvania, one out of Virginia / now West Virginia, both stopped in Ohio. One family had money. They stopped for 5 years, had a couple babies there, bought land. Then they move on to Michigan when the Homestead Act opens up, and they homestead 160 acres. The ones out of Virginia stopped in Ohio 2 years, found them in a county where there was only a few people of color. because the librarian said, there's no colored people in this area. I said, but I got a record that says this is where this ancestor was born. And then 3 months later, she emailed me back and said there was a small community of African Americans, and she was going to further that research because she was not aware of that there was that movement, as you say. And why did they move? I'm thinking either religion, jobs, or land, one or the other, will drive people to migrate, and they did it typically in groups, not always family, or to catch up with family, and assuming something was better in another place, further north or whatever, so good.
I think one of the ways that, and this is just kind of going back to, if you have ancestry in a landlocked state and you get to the 1870 census and you have an ancestor that says they were born, or the census says that they were born in Virginia, DC, or Maryland, we talked about histories. Well, for someone who is new at this and has gotten back to 1870, what histories are we talking about? We're talking about county histories for the location that your family ended up in after slavery. Well, how do you get a county history? You need to look for a book. Some of these things are digitized and they're available online, and you can, search them, and they're, optical character recognition, scanned in, so you can search for different phrases or whatever. Sometimes you'll have to look in diaries that were kept by people in the area that talk about a big migration of several families at one time, because typically these families would leave together. It would be several families at one time. Also, if you look in wills and probate proceedings, sometimes it will mention that there was land that was still owned in some of these previous states. So like, say you're in Rankin County, Mississippi, and it would say, well, my plantation here in Rankin County, Mississippi, along with land that was in Albemarle County, I'm just making one up, Virginia, or, whatever state in Maryland. And that would give you a clue as to where that particular slaveholder migrated from in the DMV region. So I just want to make sure that we kind of come back to that, because folks, who are in landlocked states have ancestors without a doubt that have a tie back to this area, and they just aren't sure exactly which tactics and skills that you would use to get back there. So let's go ahead and move forward and talk about, actually, let's go to the chat room really quickly. Sarah Cato is there. She mentions a book called Bound Away about Virginia. She also mentions that Virginia was central to the inland slave trade, meaning that it was an integral part of the slave trade in the United States. We also have, Genealogy Jen mentions that she has a wonderful children's book called The Great Migration. Thank you, Jen. I might have to get that for my son. Let's see. Shelley, of course, mentioned follow the money, land, faith, and water, of course, to be a tactic that you could use to go from landlocked states or the deep south further north. Renata brings up family papers. That's, of course, in addition to wills, probate proceedings, all that kind of stuff. Family papers that would mention, well, we migrated in 1835 from Virginia down to Mississippi. Oh, another clue also would be the census, right? If you found them in 1840, 1830, head of household living in Virginia, Maryland, or DC, but then all of a sudden you discover them 1850, 1860 living in, a deep South state, there's your clue. Also land patents, right? Because that's another big draw of how people left DC, Maryland, Virginia, and moved down south. Let's see, Ellen throws into the public chat, check African American Gateway on Allen County Public Library. Lots of links for Virginia. Brianna Williams mentions reverse searches and the importance of social histories, families, occupations, and business. Absolutely. So let's talk about records. And I'm not talking about, we're not going to throw everything at a wall and see what sticks. What are some of the absolute, you cannot live without, girl, it was the midnight hour, it was 3 a.m., I thought I was going to die because I couldn't believe I found it, record sets? Go.
You mean for the DMV?
For the DMV area.
Wow, there's so many.
Yeah, well, one thing that I think that you definitely cannot live without, if you are in this area or you have ancestors in this area, even if they're in Alexandria, Virginia as well, or Northern Virginia as well, is the records regarding emancipation registrations. Those things are fascinating. I had a good friend of mine from New Jersey who, from my home state, that was asking me. I had no idea he had DC ancestry, but as I was helping him to research, lo and behold, we find a whole family being emancipated at one time, and in these records, which can be found. Actually, I think they're online now. And I'll go in and pull a link up in a second for you, where they're actually listing who was the owner, what was the price they were compensated for, and if they were sold as a family unit, what was the interfamily relationship. So you don't have to guess as much, stuff like that is crucial to doing this kind of research on that level. Another thing, and this I have a book reference here since you mentioned books. One thing that a lot of people do not know about Washington D.C. history is that D.C. actually saw the largest single instance or single attempted escape of slaves in American history on the ship called the Pearl. This is the book Escape on the Pearl by Mary Kay Ricks. This is an excellent book. Over 75 individuals attempted to escape from this city in April of 1848. Unfortunately, they were not successful, but they had commandeered a vessel to escape to Philadelphia. They were captured, brought back, and sold to the state of Louisiana. Go figure. Now, we have the names of these individuals who were sold, and we know the story of some of them we don't. But you never know. Could you be a descendant of one of those people from the Pearl? Everybody's talking about the Georgetown project now, but could you be a descendant? See, this is a story that most people have not heard, I imagine. So I would definitely recommend checking that book out as well. So yeah, and like I said, I'll post a link to the records that I was mentioning in the chat in about 30 seconds or less.
All right.
James, could you just say something about the years that the registrations cover, and also the year of that the event happening for the revolt?
The Pearl incident occurred in April of 1848. Okay. And so it's just a remarkable story about an attempt to get these people out. Many of them came from the wealthiest families or they were enslaved by the wealthiest families in Washington D.C., to include the White House. So that's something to bear in mind. And I don't remember off the top of my head. I can probably when I pull it up, I'll get the date for the D.C. Emancipation Act as well. But that was April 16th, 1862. Was when the act was signed. So that right there made the Emancipation Proclamation didn't apply to Washington D.C. at the time. So you got to think about that. And one thing I will say, and this will be my last point or point and a half, is that the D.C. city government has done a remarkable job, in my opinion, of really trying to document that story. The D.C. archives and whatnot, they've done a wonderful job. So I would say definitely take advantage of that, and also do some research on Price and Birch, which was a big slave auction house in Alexandria. They were responsible for the forced migration of untold numbers of people. And again, that information is out there as well. So definitely research them.
I want to add that fold3.com has the DC Emancipation records. You can look at them, and they are totally amazing. I totally agree with what James is saying.
Isn't that also a PDF? Can't you download that list?
What are you referring to?
The Washington D.C. Emancipation list. That's a PDF. Let me go look.
More than a list.
There's a whole book. Let me see if I can find it. I downloaded an emancipation list out of D.C. and it was from some site. I'll see if I can find it. DC.
Okay. Any other absolutely cannot go without records when we're talking about DC, Maryland, and Virginia?
I think if you can find those registries, I think those are good.
Where do you find the registries?
Well,
Sarah Cato mentions in the chat that VA registration of free people of color took place and started taking place in 1803. So when you're talking about registrations, where are we looking for them?
local courthouses. The ones we're indexing right now in Fluvanna County. The first one I saw was 1801. The original ones, they were in a box, and now we're getting them indexed, and they'll be up on the Fluvanna County Historical Society website. And it had names, occupation, who owned them, and wife and kids. Which 1801, I think 1801 or 1802 was the first one I saw for Fluvanna County. They're all handwritten in excellent, very readable writing. And so we're hoping there's 20 sheets with names, slave owner, children. And I think they were highlighting the purpose of this registry was the occupation of these slaves. And because that seems to be, blacksmith, this, that, and carpentry. And that seemed to be prevalent and not just a regular register that you're here type thing, like you see in other states. In Ohio, you had a registry before you came in, either paid $500 in some counties, if you were coming in free. But it seemed to highlight more on occupation. We don't know where they came from. They're originals and sealed up. So anxious to get through those and get them online so people can search these PDFs, to see it.
So I would also add Sarah's in there, just calling the roll here in the public chat. Sarah Cato, that's my Sarah. All right.
Along with Cam Newton.
You know what? Stop messing with Cam in his AKA outfit this week.
I saw that.
I know, poor baby.
I didn't know what that was. I was like, what?
Just for to see, and here she was talking about me and my use of hashtags and millennial culture during my top 10. But she knew about Cam Newton's outfit at his post game press conference this
Right.
Sunday.
Cam Newton. I have no idea who you're talking about.
Cam Newton is the quarterback of the Carolina Panthers, who I secretly believe is my nephew because he looks so much like my dad. But nonetheless, Sarah, I'm just going to drop that.
I'd be brother.
Actually, no, because his dad is old enough. Yeah, long story. My dad was old as dirt when I was born. But anywho, Sarah mentions manumission in Virginia was required an act of the legislature, except for a small window. So if your ancestor was manumitted in the state of Virginia, it had to be done by an act of legislature, which means that it's in the official public record for the state of Virginia. So that would be an additional resource to search for, your ancestors who potentially could be free people of color. Of course, that'll be a topic that we'll be discussing next year in February. Believe it or not, we'll be talking about a whole show about free people of color. Let's talk about Maryland, because we're kind of leaving Maryland out there. It's like, Virginia's gotten some love. DC's gotten some love. But what about Maryland? What's that late in the midnight hour? God's going to turn it around and drop my ancestor right in my lap. What are the records? What are the record sets that are going to do that for you?
Although my ancestors won't fall out in my lap, but I will say, if you do have Maryland ancestors who were free or enslaved, you do want to take advantage of utilizing the Maryland State Archives website. Now, first of all, it is complicated. So don't shoot the messenger. It is crazy to navigate. However, you will be pleased to know that at least there are some very useful indexes on that site, including manumission records by county. So if your ancestors are from Kent County or from St. Mary's or from Caroline County, wherever, you want to find out then how many at least reels, you can utilize them once you get to the State Archives in Annapolis, but nevertheless, you have an idea of how many reels of microfilm now digitized by the archives, but how many things will you be able to access by your county wonderful records that are there. There's some records that I would think would be federal records, such as bounty records of United States colored troops. Guess what? Many of them are in the Maryland State Archives. There's tremendous amount of slavery data, including slave statistics of St. Mary's County. Our good friend and mentor, Dr. Callum, actually compiled slave statistics from her county, which is St. Mary's, but other counties in Maryland do have them. Utilize the State Archive site. It's tricky, it's crazy to try and find your way around, but after a few minutes, you'll start to get a sort of rhythm in terms of knowing how to manipulate the site. The indexes are tremendous, well worth a trip if you have Maryland ancestry to Annapolis, to the, as it is called, the State Hall of Records. That is the name of the State Archives in Annapolis, and definitely worth a trip there if you have any ties that you can document to the state of Maryland.
One thing I would like to say is I think is a great resource that's probably not as well known is the Prince George's County African American History Museum. A lot of people don't know about it. It's actually right around the corner from my house. Like literally I can walk there again. But it's a great resource because, you know, for me as someone who's a transplant to this area, when I first went and visited, I said, okay, well, what is it about this area? You know, for those who don't know, Prince George's County, at least last time I checked, was the wealthiest, predominantly Black county, I believe, in the country.
It is still, yes.
Okay, right. So there's a lot of history, a wealth of history there that I was not aware of because, again, I'm not originally from here. One thing that I learned, the town that I live in, Brentwood, Maryland, is a historically Black town. No idea about that at all. And they have an amazing collection over there as well to check out. So I think that would be a great resource also.
Also, you want to definitely check out Johns Hopkins University, the University of Maryland. If any of you have read Gene Cooper's book on antebellum slave records, you may find some of those records at Johns Hopkins in their special collections. Not to mention the various libraries, and there's the Pratt Library in downtown Baltimore that you want to go and check out some of their collections, and also the historical societies. Now I'm in Montgomery County, and they have an excellent historical society where you can find additional information on your ancestors.
Just as a side note, I wanted to share, I posted it in the chat. My ancestors happened to be in Virginia, but they got married in Maryland, and this was 1801. Frederick, Maryland, as a matter of fact. And from what I understand, there wasn't as many rules or regulations as far as getting married compared to whatever Virginia had. And a lot of people hopped over the line and went into Maryland and got married. So if you are looking back, and I can only point for the one I have, which is 1801, but in that time, and if you're up in that Northern Virginia area, connected right with, you know, border counties to Maryland, I would check Maryland records for marriages and possibly anything else. Just don't, you know, leave it out.
That's very similar to something I posted in the chat. In the Tidewater area, there are many marriages that take place in Pasquotank County, North Carolina, which is Elizabeth City. And I never really knew the reason for it, but I guess if you're aware that there are more restrictions in Virginia, that would be true. And I found that more in the 20th century, in the early 20th century, because I don't have Virginia ancestors that were here before that. So I'm not sure if it was true before that, but definitely in the early 20th century, that's true. And I've heard it from several other people who research people from the Tidewater area.
Something else that Ellen brought up, which is a great tactic for going from down south, but you know, back to this particular region, the Freedmen Savings and Trust records. Looking at the state of birth on those, and of course, if we're going to talk about that as well, we also have to bring up the separate Freedmen's Bureau records. and looking to see if certain things are mentioned maybe in a labor contract or, just anything with regard to their Freedmen's Bureau records. You know, if there's a connection you have to a person who may or may not have been a slaveholder, or maybe somebody who was of European descent, and you can trace them back to a particular region in the DMV area, and you know that your ancestor, or you believe your ancestor was born in that area, that would be a great way to go from Deep South to Up South as well, or the Upper South as well. Let's go ahead and check the chat. We've got, of course, James is going to shout out Howard University when any opportunity he could possibly get. He talks about the Moreland Springham library that has amazing connections on local history. If there's anything you've learned or picked up from tonight, you need to get your local history books, regardless of where your ancestors were. Check online. If there isn't anything that you're finding online, call the local library where your family is from and ask about the county history book that's available. And, you know, if it's not in print anymore, then hightail it to the Family Search Library in Salt Lake City, or go to Allen County Public Library, or go to the library where your family's from and get those local history books, because a lot of those can help you determine, or genealogy, and you're absolutely right, or historical society. Genealogy Society is a number of locations that would have these potential county history books that can give you a kind of bird's eye view into how certain families migrated down from the DMV area down to the Deep South. Of course, Sarah brings up a very good point in the chat. Of course, you want to join these societies. So that way you get access to these records and books and things that you cannot get online. That's the point that I'm hammering home, is a lot of these county histories are not online.
Correct.
They aren't online. Nope, not there.
I want to
Don't
point
forget
out
oral history either.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was going to also just add newspapers that are online, particularly the Baltimore Afro from 1890s onward. You can find them if you have access to ProQuest through your local library or your local college library, college or university library. ProQuest, get online and read the Baltimore Afro. Tremendous information. And one resource that, one of the things that can keep me up at night, as you were saying, is just learning how to tweak those databases. And if I'm on a newspaper database, just type in the words slave passes away or old slave dies. You get some amazing biographies in these historically Black newspapers, the Afro, even the Chicago Defender, other newspapers will provide tremendous biographies of a person from the community who was once enslaved. And I would even suggest looking for Maryland slaves in other cities, because a lot of times someone went to live with their son or daughter as they got older, and then they passed away. An old slave from Maryland dies, and maybe it's in the Pittsburgh Courier newspaper, and the person was 102, and a biography may appear there as well. And also Arthur Bunyan Caldwell, I've mentioned him before in the Internet Archive. I believe that there is a volume that he has done on Virginia. I wish he had done some on other states, but I know Virginia and the Carolinas, and I believe Georgia, but it's another resource. But primarily the newspapers are a tremendous resource, and definitely use the Afro.
To piggyback on that, if you check out Chronicling America, they have a great collection on Washington, D.C. Newspapers. One of them in particular, Washington Bee, is an amazing resource for understanding the social life of Blacks in Washington, D.C. In the post Civil War era. But there were a number of others that of other papers that were covering events going on in the Black community going back as well. So definitely check that site out. Also, so yeah.
Are people having good luck with newspaper.com?
No.
I struggle.
No.
I'm really not, and it's a paid subscription, but I'm not finding, and I'm not just looking for people of color. I'm just saying I'm not finding as much as I thought I would. And just didn't know if other people shared that same feeling. I'm just It's a record set that there's one called Fulton History. I found more on that if you've ever used that. And it's not just New York, it's a lot of newspapers in the United States and articles like Angela was referencing, you know, putting those search words in there. But it's called Fulton History, and I can't remember if it's .com or not. So, but anyway, I put that link to that DC Emancipation in your inbox, Nika. I don't know how to attach it in chat.
Okay. Okay, and that was that the statute that was established by.
There's names in there. There's
Okay.
79 pages, and there's names.
Okay. All right. And where did you find this?
It showed up in a search. I was up looking in some DC stuff.
Okay.
And you can, yeah, it's on there, and it's the act and everything, but there's names.
Absolutely. It's and just to kind of give you guys, I'm looking at this on my phone. It's the 38th Congress First Session House of Representatives, and it says Emancipation in the District of Columbia. And the first couple lines are letter from the Secretary of the Treasury in an answer to blah, 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 blah. And it's quite a lengthy document that I can't read here online because we'll be here until the election next week. But we definitely, I'm going to go ahead and go over some comments here in the chat room before we get to current events, because we're already at 9 o'clock and you guys love pushing me over 9 o'clock.
Us? Really?
Us?
Imagine.
Whatever.
And your Digging the Roots is in your Facebook too, inbox.
Thank you, ma'am. We keep on touching on Chronicling America. You know, I love Chronicling America. If you're not using Library of Congress, the newspaper site, Lord, please head over there because that's an amazing resource that is free 99. All right. Let's see. Brianna Williams, who is actually Judith Collins, who was one of my genealogy sort of like mentors, which I didn't know. Brianna's her daughter, but she's using Brianna's stuff, so I didn't know it was her. She says, think outside the box. Begin to think like a detective. Dig, and dig some more. All resources can be valuable when you begin to read between the lines.
Yes.
She's absolutely right. All right, let's get to current events. We've got some interesting ones this week.
I just sent you one too, by the way, Nika.
Okay, so there's another one that's got sent. Before we get into our actual additional current events, we got to make sure we give a shout out to True Lewis, she's looking like, why are you talking about me? Because she's over here monitoring comments and Twitter and all sorts of stuff. We got to make sure we give her a shout out because she is a new inductee into the Daughters of the American Revolution.
Thank you.
Which is a lineage society, and you have to prove that you go back to the Patriot. And she probably had to submit 75 times, and she was ready to give up and throw everything in the trash. And Miss Shelley was like, "Girl, don't do it." And she was like, "Okay, I'm not." And then she decided she wanted to throw everything in the trash again. And Miss Shelley was like, "Girl, you almost there." And then she had her induction ceremony.
Yes.
Awesome.
It's official now. Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate all the support I got from you guys, whether you know it or not. You all were there with me in spirit, and it was wonderful. And I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. Thank you, Shelley, keeping me encouraged.
Do you think the type of research you did on that helps you in your other research?
It does, and it kind of now I kind of use that all the time now.
Yeah.
The worksheet that we have to do, you can apply that to any aspect of an ancestor that you're researching for, and it's kind of been a habit for so long that's kind of where my starting point now.
Okay.
So
I'll share that worksheet if anybody wants it as a tool.
Well,
it'll keep you on track.
The other thing I would say is this should serve as a message to everyone watching that you don't have to be white to be a member of DAR.
You got two right here.
You got two.
Actually,
two
there's about
drops.
150 of us across the country, and we're pushing to get some more. I'm waiting for Miss Bernice Bennett because she got about 9 or 10 that she needs to be working on, and get her in there too. So you too, Nika.
Yeah, I have about 3, but
Yeah.
all of mine is DNA. So
Don't matter. We
all
can handle that if it's a
all
Y.
right,
If we
all
use
right.
that Y thing.
All right, all right. We got a couple people. At least Sarah Cato says she on her way. She said,
Yes,
"I'm gonna
she
be." She
is.
said, "I'm gonna be next."
Yes, she is. I'm waiting on her.
You waiting on her? Oh my
Yes.
gosh! All right. Well, so outside of that, let's get to current events. This is my favorite one.
Uh-oh. I don't even know what it is. I'm scared.
You guys are so funny because I actually share these with you beforehand, but you never read them. But that's okay.
I do.
All right. So, Vice News. If you don't follow Vice, I love Vice. It's like a great alternative news source. It's like really good, great sourcing. I mean, pure journalism. That's what I really like about it. They actually have a nightly news show on HBO that comes on now, which is great. They also have a channel called Vice Land that airs just all sorts of stuff. But they reported earlier in October about how the alt-right movement is beginning to use genetic tests to prove their whiteness. Now, you may be wondering, what's the alt-right, the alternative right? These are the people that are, super duper conservative, really not immigration friendly. Think Breitbart. I can't even really go into everything, but I'll just read the first paragraph. Right. Andrew remembers feeling a tinge of apprehension when he logged on to 23andMe. Several weeks earlier, he spit into a tube and mailed it to the genetic testing company, which analyzes customers' DNA to estimate where their ancestors came from. But when he clicked on his color-coded ancestry chart, he felt relief. 99.7% European. He went to the Reddit page, White Rights, where he's a moderator, and posted a screenshot saying, quote, "Finally got around to checking my privilege." At the bottom of the chart, he photoshopped in an extra line, 100% Goy. So basically what this is people who are not necessarily minority friendly are using the DNA test that we're using to identify relatives to basically legitimize how white they are. And some of them are discovering that they're not that white at all.
Good.
Wait, let me ask the question
Next
before
headline.
You start going in. Next headline. But here's my question. What if you encounter one of these people and you don't know it in your results?
Ignore.
I'm just going to tell them they're my cousin and dare them to prove it.
How do you know that they are until you contact them? What if
I'm just saying, you
now
the point, tell me something different.
The point that I'm bringing up though is, when we have these conversations about DNA in the genealogy community, oftentimes, folks are just really frustrated at the lack of response that they're getting from their matches. One of the things that we have to consider, in addition to somebody maybe just wanting the pie chart, or somebody who just has no interest in locating cousins, just wanted to get the percentages, whatever, is it's potentially there is a huge group of folks who are online who are trying to legitimize their European ancestry, and may discover that you got a chunk of that European that they have, and they don't want nothing to do with you because you have melanin.
But that's no surprise. I mean, yeah. I mean,
that's actually daily walking through research.
Yeah. Well,
I don't go out of my way to contact those matches anyway.
But that's the thing. You don't know until you try to contact them. The reason why I'm bringing this up is this. We all have been doing DNA testing for a while, right? This is something we all know. It's not new to us. But there are people who are watching who may have just started that portion of their genealogy search. And they may have high matches that they're reaching out to that may fall into this category. And they have not tried to contact them, can't understand, why am I showing up as a first cousin or a second cousin to this person and they're not reaching back out to me? Well, this may be the reason why.
I mean, I've had that issue, not necessarily with a person who was maybe part of some kind of organization, but they were just like, well, I'm white, you're black, we can't be related. I just, said, okay, well, that person's ignorant, and regardless of what the DNA says, I mean, everybody who shares your bloodline ain't necessarily your kinfolk. Now, that does obviously present a an issue when you're trying to do research and you're trying to figure out, how are we related? Maybe this is that person probably could help you understand, a little bit more about your background. Unfortunately, that's just one of the burdens that we bear. And I don't know that there's an easy answer or solution to it. But what I do know is whether it's in person or online or wherever else, I don't tolerate disrespect, for me personally or for my ancestry or whatever. And so if anyone says anything negative to me, I'll just remind them that, on my mother's side, I'm descended from Django, and on my father's side, I'm descended from Catcher Freeman. And, that's just going to be it. So the older folks are like, what is he talking about? Go back and watch the Boondocks, y'all. If y'all don't watch the Boondocks, go back and watch the Boondocks.
Yeah.
I mean,
watch the Boondocks.
I watched the Boondocks, but even
I saw
still,
a few episodes. I was overwhelmed.
Yeah, it is a lot. It is a lot. But even still, I mean, this is something that we all need to kind of keep in mind as well. Front of your mind, some people just may not be interested. Some people don't want to know if they have ancestors or cousins of a mixed race. Some of these folks in the article, I shared the link in the public chat. I'll share it here in our chat as well. They are discovering that they have a degree of, Asian or African blood, and they are absolutely devastated because they've been riding this movement, that's just, no other people. And then you find out you other people.
I guess I don't see it as an issue for me personally. There are plenty of people that I see as matches on 23andMe or matches to my brother's ancestry test or whatever. I'm not necessarily contacting them sort of hoping for acceptance anyway. I leave them alone. Number one, I have not identified by name, and I have 20% European ancestry, yet after 5 generations that I can go back at least on 2 different lines, I still don't have the name of one suspect, even though 20% of my DNA is European and from the British Isles. So if I don't have a name, why am I going to bother Henry Higgins in wherever, Michigan? Hi, I'm your cousin. Do you have my folks on your list of papers at home? I'm not going to bother that guy. I don't even have as I said, I don't have a name. It doesn't bother me. And I don't see it as a major issue. And if good old Henry up in Michigan wants to take the DNA and find out he's white, he may see I'm a match. I'm sure he probably has colorful words, but I'm never going to hear them. It's not an issue. Next.
But you guys, you can't be short-sighted. You got to remember there are a lot of young people who are into doing genealogy right now, and they're not thinking how we are after having years of discrimination.
Absolutely.
Right? They're not thinking like that. As a matter of fact, Willie, unmute yourself.
Yes.
Because you need to be in on this conversation, right? Okay. So how do you're the youngest person here, right? We're talking about this. This is why you're here, right?
Yeah.
How does this make you feel knowing full well that, you have cousins of yours that may identify as just straight up white who might be on the alt-right movement, who are trying to legitimize their whiteness, and you are part of the Black connection that they don't want.
Or didn't know about.
Now
don't want.
And
now
don't
upset
want.
you.
Or both.
It doesn't upset me too much because I already expect that going in, that most won't. But sometimes what I do is, I don't know if it's still like that on 23andMe, where you don't have to show your DNA, what you're made of. I'm not sure if you still can do that. So what I do is I don't even say what I am. I just email them. Sometimes they'll email me back. Sometimes they won't. And then later on, when I get into a conversation with them, then I'll let them know what I am that way. So then by that way, I can get a connection, try to figure out a way that we connect.
I think also the people in the alt-right movement, they're not doing genealogy. They're spitting to make sure that they're white. They're not sitting up there holding lists of ancestors and worrying about who's from my family is in there.
Oh, yeah, they are.
Yes, they are.
They're doing genealogy.
They are doing genealogy.
And I hope they make it back to Charlemagne, but it just does not affect
Charlottesville, maybe.
It doesn't,
at all.
but even still, but this is, we're having an important discussion though, because this is, think about this. When you have articles that are coming out like this, right, where the alt-right has clearly said this is something that we're doing, that we're practicing, right?
Right.
Enough to discuss it with a journalist.
Okay.
You also have to take into account, if you're somebody of European descent and you have someone who is a minority who's reached out to you to make a connection, genealogically speaking, and you don't respond, and they've maybe sent you 1 or 2 messages, they might think that you are part of this group.
Let me say this. Let me say this,
Right.
and I'm gonna say this one time only.
That is an issue.
For anybody who's newer, doing this kind of work, and this is a concern, because this does come up, and like I said, it happened to me one time. I blocked the person. Nobody has broken this down better in terms of politically, at least in my opinion, than my sister from another mister, Miss Ellen. If you haven't checked her recent blog out, do it, because that will give you a bigger framework to work with, not just from a small level, wondering why is this person disrespecting you online or whatever the case may be, but get a broader understanding of really, where did this whole science or this hobby of genealogy, where was its roots based out of? So I'm just gonna leave it at that, and it's on y'all to go check that link out when it's posted. Because she broke it out. She's being quiet, but she broke it down better than anybody probably could ever break it down. So
yeah, it was broke down to however, as many brokennesses as you could possibly get. I'll post the link in the group, in the public chat, just in case folks were missing it or missed it.
You
Powerful piece.
Oh, okay. I read those things, and I think people do the DNA for different reasons. Number 1, they're curious. Number 2, there's some oral history back there or something that came up. Or 3, maybe they tan quicker than other people and figure they've got, some melanin in them other than just European. And I'm actually, the concern for me is for them not understanding that even if they are looking for a white privilege or how much white they are, they still ain't from here. I mean, you know what I'm saying? You want to throw all the other current immigration, immigrants, all of that, you have to check yourself. There's so much chaos around the immigration and all of that, and people, whoever coming from Mexico, whatever it is, and who's ever singing that song. But the thing of it is, when they do determine their whiteness and they live in America, that whiteness didn't start probably in America. And then to have a different view on how you treat people where they come from. Prime example, I have a cousin. She posted about not wanting the immigrants in here, this, that, and other. She just found out from DNA that she had 13% African American in her, and I was her highest DNA match. She was adopted, and she was on search of her biological parents. But she toots every day on Facebook, following her person she would like to be president, and about all this immigration. And I went right in on her page and said, wait a minute, where are you even trying to come from? You know your DNA. You know you don't come from here. Your ancestry doesn't come here. And I'm talking about the European side and her African American side. And I think it should be more of a non-issue, because like Willie said and Angela said, you go in knowing that you're not going to get responses from some people.
Yeah, something that I'll add here. The chat room is kind of lighting up on this subject, as it should be, because this is kind of a hot button issue. Of course, Sarah's in there just yeah. She's being Sarah. Some of us know where the white comes from and how it got there, and are not particularly proud, which is true. Connie Payne comments, some white relatives were the first to reach out to her. That actually is the same for me. I did have that experience. Kristen Klieg is in there. She says, I feel the same as Angela about this. If I'm contacted by white DNA matches or someone who contacts me because of a slaveholder tree I have, if they offer info, fine. I don't contact them. I stay in my lane. All right. Well, let's see. Genealogy Jen chimes in. They shut down the borders to immigrants and discriminated about them long before our current issues.
Exactly.
Well, Jen is clutch. If you don't know who Genealogy Jen is, Jen comes through. She's clutch. I hope she was Superwoman for Halloween.
Translate clutch.
Yes, she is.
Help
Millennial
the baby boomer
translation.
out.
Clutch.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, you guys
Right
go
on.
back and forth between I'm old and I'm not. Clutch
Generation
meaning,
X millennials, we don't talk that language as boomers. What's a clutch?
Clutch
except for
is,
thing in your car.
Except for except for a handbag, if you're a lady,
a
clutch, right? All right, so clutch it's a reference to sports, right? You want to be the clutch shooter. You want to be the person that comes through in the clutch, right? So like your team is down by 2 points. You're Ray Allen, shoot a 3-pointer, and you win the game. He's Mr. Clutch.
Ray Allen, but I get you.
Ray Allen, he's a basketball player. Google.
I have no idea.
or your Cam Newton, and it's a Super Bowl.
Yes, but right now they have a 2-5 record, so we don't want to bring up the Carolina Panthers.
Too soon?
It's too soon. Actually, Genealogy Jen says that she was Athena, the goddess of wisdom, for Halloween. moving on. Next.
Go, Jen.
Our next current event is, let's talk about this. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Here we are, just eating up time. People are staying with us though, so apparently everybody likes us, which is great. That's awesome. This one was submitted by Mr. James Morgan III.
Yeah.
Yes, so let's talk about this. You're like, everyone's watching this going, okay, it's a human skull. What is it? That would be what is believed to be the skull of Nat Turner. Why is it there? Why is it on National Geographic? Well, the story is that his skull, after the rebellion and after he was, executed for being the orchestrator of the rebellion, the Nat Turner Rebellion, which of course is the subject of the movie Birth of a Nation by Nate Parker, that pieces of his body were taken to several places. His skin was ground into, wasn't it made into oil for wagon?
Oil.
Yeah. Let's see. And just a number of things. But this skull actually has been returned to his family and is believed to be the skull of Nat Turner. And so I've shared the link in the public chat area, so you can take a look at this story that is on the National Geographic website. It actually says that as of October 13th, the family has temporarily given the skull to the Smithsonian Institution, which is going to conduct a DNA test to determine if it is in fact Turner's. If the tests come back positive, he'll be buried next to his descendants. So let's have a discussion quickly about the return of your ancestor's skull.
The thing that I would say on it is, and I've said this before online and other forums, is a lot of people look at the Birth of a Nation film with the controversy surrounding Nate Parker's court case and the rape allegations that were from years ago, whatever. Not to get into that discussion, but in my opinion, if regardless of how many tickets it sold or didn't sell or whatever the situation is or was, I saw the movie. If that movie coming out inspired somebody or touched somebody in a way that they return the skull, not just to the public, in terms of, the Smithsonian or whatever, but so that family could get some sense of peace or some sense of connection. Even if it was in a way that you wouldn't traditionally think about genealogy, then I say, then I'm all for it, because there are some ancestors, of mine, and I'm sure of yours, that I know where they're buried. I've visited them, regardless of what their condition was, what was their cause of death. I know where they are. There are some who I have no idea where they're buried, but to know that your ancestor stood up against that oppressive system and that he to this day has not received a proper burial fit for a human being, and then to have at least even that part of him returned, I think is something that is the only thing I could say is divine in my personal opinion. And if that is his skull and it was returned to his family and it was part of this whole the movie coming out, whatever, then I say that that justice has been served, regardless of what the methodology was for it to be served. Justice was served.
Anyone else want to chime in?
Yeah. I mean, well, darn, you know. I agree with James. I've seen the movie twice now and gained some insight on there, and, had Nat Turner's fourth great grandson talk at our OG's local chapter, anniversary type thing. And the theme was for him to tell what come down as a child growing up. And he's still down there in the Southampton area of Virginia. But I think it brings possible closure. But I don't know if I want to just see it in the museum. I'd like to see the shrine down there in Southampton, Virginia, or something, besides just putting the skull in and taking that. But for me, if it was my family, I would take it as some closure and, from what happened to him, happened to his wife, the family, everybody at that time, all involved. I think there needs to be some monument or something down there in that area, and not just in the museum.
If I recall correctly, I believe that the skull, that they were doing some DNA testing on it to authenticate the museum. But I think that the family was planning on giving him a proper burial.
That was what I read. So, and again, I think it's closure for the family. And I'm going to give you a quote from an 86-year-old woman. All that mess over a few white people getting killed. That was her comment about the Nat Turner revolt. And she was equating that to all of the slaves and folks that had been killed. And this was only, she says, a few. It was 55, I think. But she's saying, how can you equate one to the masses and to the hundreds of others? They need to just leave that alone. And I was explaining about the skull coming back. And she just said they did all of that against him for those few people, that were killed compared to all that happened to the enslaved people.
That's the concept of white superiority.
Yes.
And that's what that is. That's, the underlying basis of an entire television network, the underlying basis of so many of Make America Great Again, because the era that he refers to as making it great again is an era when white superiority was the law of the land. So, that's what all of that is about. That's what all of it is. And so
but I mean, we got to consider, the emotions and feelings behind some of the descendants of these folks that were murdered, right? We can't just make it.
Well, are they different from those of us who descend from the enslaved? They are not different.
No, not
Murder
at all.
is not great. Slavery is certainly not great. We descend. We still hurt. Although there are those who say, get over it, get over it. Oh, then should those descend from those who were murdered get over it? No. I'm not going to get over slavery. And I'm not watching another slave movie either. But because I don't get over it. And because I work with these records every day. So, yeah, let us give this man the burial he did not get. And let us continue to tell the story.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because it's why was the revolt?
Absolutely.
Why?
It's the why.
Pay attention to that, not what happened as a result of the result. Why? What drove him? What was the compelling story about this? What made him? Because the biggest, most outstanding thing, and I'm not, for people that hadn't seen the movie, and I hate to even go here.
No spoilers.
Oh, put them out there. I'm not going to see it. Don't worry.
My only thing is that, and I'm going to say it real general, because you need to go see the movie, you want to hear it. For every word that was said on one side of the page, there was another side of the page that said something totally opposite. And you have to go see the movie to know what I'm talking about. And that was the biggest thing for me. And it almost was a shock thing. And like, oh, you know what? That's so right. He's correct. And that was the biggest thing that for me from that movie, you know, was to sit there because here a position he had. And then he realized, but it took pain, hurt, suffering, devastation for that middle eye to open up. I'm gonna call it that way, the middle eye to open up.
Well, I think you all are bringing up some very important points, and they have some implications for now, you know, as we're watching things play out with the election, or we're watching, you know, the next, you know, hashed person who's turned into a hashtag because of this, you know, issues surrounding their death, maybe at the hands of law enforcement or whatever. You know, it's calling all of us to look at the why.
Yes.
Right? Not the end result, not the, oh, well, he shouldn't have got stopped, or he should have just said XYZ, or he shouldn't have rode his bike, or he shouldn't went to go get Skittles and an Arizona iced tea. You know, the why behind it. I think that's something that's very important. Before we wrap up, I'll just go ahead and go in and get some more comments from the public chat. Renata mentions there is a roadside marker on Route 58 with regard to the Nat Turner Rebellion. She says not much, but it is something. Let's see. Sarah Cato mentions that a Black person was holding the skull for a number of years. Name was Richard Hatcher. Kristen says that she's not watching another slave movie either. She directed that towards you, Angela. And Sarah is, of course, being Sarah. And it's talking about the fact that there were 600 Black people who were killed in retaliation for the Nat Turner revolt.
Mama's point right there.
Mama's point right there. So if there's nothing else for us to add, let's go ahead and actually let's talk about the fact that this is the last one of these we have for this year.
Aww.
Yeah, I ain't messing with y'all during the holidays. You see how we got it over with early in the month, right?
That's a good point.
Who's doing NaNoWriMo?
I am.
We are doing NaNoWriMo. NaNoWriMo, what she's referring to is National Novel Writing Month, which is in November. A number of us are doing that. I'm crazy. I have lost my mind, and I have jumped on ship with Bernice and Shelley and Angela, and I believe
Linda.
I'm doing it too.
Where we're having a goal where we're going to attempt to get the basics or perhaps a big novel by the end of the month.
My first 1600 is done.
Yes,
I got it done today.
I ain't got nothing done, so don't ask me about my word count. I don't have anything
Don't go to
done.
bed. That's okay.
I can't wait, because if I can lock this thing down in 30 days, I might seriously finish this thing.
I did it last year, and I did it in less than 30 days. I couldn't believe
I know.
it.
I remember.
That was wild.
Yeah.
Yes. And so you can feel free to join us for National Novel Writing Month. We're all crazy.
Did you see Bernice's comment?
Go ahead and join us.
What was her
comment?
comment?
And Bernice has a schedule. She's starting to write. She's writing from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. I wish that's the only time I can sleep without a 2-year-old screaming at me. So yeah, my time is gonna have to happen after hours, like right now. Let's see. Genealogy Jen is doing it too.
Oh, great.
Out there, so we're gonna have to find her.
We'll find her. We need writing buddies.
Let's see. Judy comments, millions of innocent human beings were enslaved and the killing continues today. Always remember who the storyteller is. What she has said and stuff. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. So with that said, let's talk about.
Shared also about her book.
Yes. She said that's the best time of day. Well, let's talk about 2017. We have a lot of topics that we're going to be talking about here on BlackProGen. January, we're going to do our debriefs on our favorite show, Finding Your Roots.
Finding Jane. Oh.
Where's my glass?
Don't
do that as a hashtag, Finding Jane.
Lord, y'all going to get us kicked off of YouTube.
He's got a series coming up in a couple of weeks.
Yes, there
coming
is.
out.
There's a new series coming out from Henry Louis Gates. It's about African American history post Martin Luther King.
Correct.
It's a new mini series that's coming out. But we'll be discussing Finding Your Roots in January, February. We actually have a Black History Month series where you'll be hearing from us every week during Black History Month with regard to different topics. We'll be talking about free people of color, a number of different things. And then March, we'll talk about social media and people of color in the West, being Arizona, Nevada, California, which is something new for us because in the past, we've been focusing our research on the Eastern states and the South. So if you're interested in the schedule for 2017, feel free to stop by my website, whoisnikasmith.com. You'll see the post there that says speak on it, the BlackProGen 2017 schedule. I've established a public Google Calendar, where you can find out all the dates, the topics. Next year, we're actually moving to 2 hangouts per month. Why am I doing this to myself?
Love it.
You need some more topics.
You know what?
Got plenty topics.
We have plenty of topics because y'all about to give me a stroke with the ones we got now. But y'all ain't gonna kill me in no 2017.
You're so good.
No,
You're
ma'am.
a natural.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Don't forget, Ask Mariah. Don't forget.
Yes, that was the
features.
other thing. Was going to be you got to get more. You got to get your submissions into Ask Mariah, which is going to be our basically our Q&A. You can throw out your questions, queries to us, and we'll actually work them out here on BlackProGen Live during our episodes. As you know, you've got twice the chance of us picking your question because we have twice the number of episodes for next year.
Right.
And then we also have Ancestry Makers, which that allows 4 lucky people the ability to get their genealogy done by our esteemed and highly experienced group of genealogy researchers. We already have submissions. We have some good ones. So if you are interested, yes, we do. If you are interested in participating in those things, I'll go ahead and post the links in the public chat area as well as in the description for this Hangout video. So any parting words before we're done with 2016?
I would just like
get out and vote.
Get out and vote.
Definitely get out and vote.
Renata says.
I would just like to make sure that I squeeze this in because last time I had a current event didn't get mentioned. This Saturday here in DC is going to be the 43rd annual conference of the Washington DC Historical Society. They have a number of very, very, very excellent panels. I'll be there. I'm not speaking at any of them, but there are a couple that I know I'll be at for sure. Because people who I work with will be speaking there. So I would definitely encourage everybody to check those out. And also to remember to break your notebooks out during the holidays and take down those family stories and take plenty of pictures and ask about the old picture on the mantelpiece or whatever, because a lot of family history research can get done during the holiday season. That's a little trick of the trade I've learned.
Making memories for the next generation.
That's true. That's true. So, and if you need something Washington D.C. related, maybe you can get Black Georgetown Remembered as that's nice stocking stuffer for you right there. Boom.
I remember Sarah Cato was telling me that she used to attend that church on, I'm not sure what that street is. Is it P Street or Q or whatever the street is in Georgetown? That historically Black church that is still there. And I know that she said that she attended it when she was in law school at Howard. And I've always just found that whole aspect of DC's amazing history and Black Georgetown to be quite fascinating. So I'm glad to see that there's a book out about it. That's great.
That'll be interesting.
Yes.
Absolutely. This is actually the 25th anniversary edition, but it's a great resource. A lot of great pictures, church histories. Again, I'm kind of jealous I don't have DC ancestry like that, but it's a great book to check out.
Still interesting.
Yeah. I don't either. Virginia and Maryland and up the East Coast and deep South.
We already had Tyrone Craft is asking why we did not cover Florida.
Oh, I see that. All right, where are you from, Tyrone? Is that
apparently I don't know where he's from.
Oh, we could have some good conversation about Florida.
We could, but you better that's another show, and you better make the suggestion. If you don't make the suggestion,
You maybe
And
have
you
to
better
tell
get a
them
crowd.
how.
Yeah, I was gonna say go to my site. The post with the I'll post it in there. But the post with the schedule, that's where you should look to make your suggestions as to topics that you feel we may have not discussed. And if we feel that they are awesome, then we just might add them.
They're all awesome. We're
They
telling
are
the
indeed.
story. We're bringing it up. We're showing the records, sharing information. It's all awesome.
I would hope so. All right, you all, for the end of
Wow.
2016, this is our esteemed group of 10 panelists. Thank you all so much for taking your time.
Wow,
And
what happened to
joining
Tony
us.
tonight? She's missing.
Yeah, I'm not sure why she's not here. Tony Carrier
If you're
wasn't
out
here
there,
with us
Tony.
tonight.
Mister.
Greetings, greetings.
Greetings.
And see if you like to dig in the roots and we will, I guess Angela and I'll donate that to BlackProGen
I
Live
think that's our theme song.
from Timid MC on Facebook, who wrote it and put the music to it, and it's 32 seconds.
There you go.
So you gotta listen to the words.
Shout
I
out
don't know
to
if you can play the audio. Can you play the audio?
I gave it to Nika. I don't
Yes,
know.
but we're not going to. It's 9:40.
It's 32 seconds.
It's 32 seconds.
I am tired. And I have barely eaten my dinner behind you people. Look at this. My chopsticks are barely used.
I'm
Because all
cooking
I
this
can have
tomorrow if anybody
was my
wants
miso
it.
soup. That's it.
Shout
Over
out
here
to-
talking about craziness. And then Sarah's gonna be in the chat room talking about, so get out of my chat.
Shout out to Willie, by the way, for taking my spot.
Yes,
He
Willie.
took. I was the youngest. He took that from me. I was the only male. He took that from me. I was the only guy on here with glasses. He took that. Willie just took everything that I thought I valued today.
Now you're the
You take the third because he is the fourth.
Yeah, he's the fourth. Like what is this? Like the new edition? Like I'm not even like spoiler alert. I'm not even gonna be on next year. Nika's gonna fire me next year, and Willie's gonna take everything.
Leave my baby alone, okay?
I'm messing with you. I'm messing with you.
Oh my
Unhook us, Nika.
I am. So on behalf of all of, I told you it was a tee-hee-hee night. I said that when we first started. On behalf of everybody here at BlackProGen in Maryland, Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky, and Missouri, we love you all. We hope you have an amazing rest of your 2016. Give lots of good, tight hugs to your family members and get those interviews that you have been saying you're going to get for a number of years, because you just don't know. A lot of times, especially during this time of year, people pass on unexpectedly and you just never know. So get those interviews. As James mentioned, sit down with folks, start conversations, look at prompts. I have an interviewing guide that you can get that's on my site that'll help you ask questions if you don't know where to start when it comes to family history interviews. And, just really take some time to absorb your family right now. Disconnect. When you do these interviews, write things down. Don't record it all with your phone. If you do, just ignore it. Turn off your alerts for your apps, all those things, and absorb your time with your family. And that will add to your genealogy and family history research exponentially. So on behalf of everybody, I know tears. I know on behalf of everybody.
No, James and Willie are a DNA match. What a great way to wrap this stuff up.
What is this?
I'm watching that. That's awesome.
What
All
is
right,
this?
Nika.
Lord, here I am trying to wrap up the show, and y'all are fine.
Did you see that?
I'm getting sentimental here. I'm trying to get people
Don't be
to go back old school.
That's a wrap instead of a match.
Oh my
Nika, you're not
gosh,
watching. You're not watching the chat room. I'm sitting here.
You're not watching the chat room.
Can we close the show out, y'all?
This is my last episode, y'all. They gonna get rid of me next.
No, just to let the rest of the world know that James and Willie actually discovered that they're cousins, they're DNA matches. That this all just went down in the last
I'm not
2
a vagina.
minutes.
Oh Lord.
This all went down the last 2 minutes of our little private chat here. But anywho, on behalf of everybody here, just want to say we love you. Have a great end of the year, and we'll see you in January. Bye-bye.
Great holiday season. Happy Thanksgiving.
I'm submitting resumes.